Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. In this episode, we're going to talk about the differences between traditional selling and consultative selling. And this is probably one of the main reasons why V8 Media has been able to grow so quickly since 2021. It's just changing the way we sell completely. And at the same time, if you are someone who generates leads and want to convert more of those leads into paying clients and customers, then this is for you. Now in studio, I have my good friend, Wandile Shabangu.
How's it going, man?
So nice to have you here, my friend. I think back of our journey, we started our journey in 2016. We randomly connected. The universe made our paths cross. And then they crossed again in 2018. And then in 2021, actually, you became our head of sales at V8. And we took, I want to say, the world by storm. Like we were one of the first agencies to focus on the bottom line and specifically niche down in e-commerce.
What a journey there was.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. Now, I truly believe that one of the biggest reasons we've grown so quickly, and obviously you have your own business now called Digital Agents, where you help real estate agents basically get more sole mandates and you help them find, buying and selling leads. That's correct?
100%. You got it right. Many people are like, what do you do normally? But yeah, that's basically what we do.
Yeah, I mean, you've taken your sales skills and you've applied it in an industry that I think needs it a lot, because times have changed so much and it's still a very traditional industry. And I think it fits in with today's topic of consultative selling versus traditional selling. And I think you're just an expert at sales and handling objections, and also the word specifically is consultative selling. Maybe you can tell the audience a little bit more about what that is, what that means.
Okay, sure, man. So consultative sales is more taking a approach where you are doing the best that you can to diagnose your clients or your potential clients' issues and seeing if whether you'll be able to assist them or not with your product or your services. So it's more on the client focus gain instead of you just trying to make a transaction, which is the inverse of what the traditional selling model is all about.
So what does traditional look like, if I may ask?
Traditional is more from the perspective of, you talk to a potential client, you give them a quote or you tell them what you do, and they either take it or leave it. And if they give you any objections, you apply a little bit of pressure. Well, a little bit, me just being, that's hyperbole. But it's really more from the perspective of, this is what I do, I'm the best at what I do, and take it or leave it.
I think like one thing I've never really enjoyed is telling people to buy our product or service. I just don't enjoy it because I don't want to let anybody down. So I never made promises I can't keep back when I was still doing the sales myself at V8. And I never told anybody, please, I think this is going to be the best fit for you, because I almost get a bit nervous and anxious when I make that commitment, because now I've told you that I'm going to help you with something and now I need to deliver. So my sales approach, just unconsciously, actually, I didn't consciously know that was what I was doing, but my sales approach was always just trying to be as authentic as possible and deliver as much value as possible, and then go, hey, this is all the gaps that I see. Here's potentially how I would fix it. There's no guarantee that I think this is going to work at that time, but I truly believe if you fix these few things, you're going to have an interesting next 90 to 120 days. And 90% of the time, a lot of people said, cool, let's give it a go. But the expectation was that might not work. And the more success we had, the easier it was actually to get people to understand the value, because then it was, okay, cool. This is the framework. This is how it works. These are the gaps that you have. This is how the gaps actually fit into the solution that we have. Again, there's no guarantee that it might work, but all these people have seen success with it. And maybe there's a chance that you can see success with it too. And it seemed to work for me, starting in the agency in 2018, and then you came along and you put your own spin on it. I think you made it completely your own. You were really good at getting deeper into the pain points. While I was just probing top level stuff, like you got really deep into asking specific questions. And I think from my point of view, I would love for you to maybe just tell the public, those listening, the more deeper perspectives of consultative selling and how you would handle a sales call potentially, maybe the framework that you follow, and maybe little tips and advice for people along the way.
100%, man. So when it comes to my framework, my core focus is really getting an understanding of what was the core reason as to why we're engaging, because there's a reason, right? And my first focus is to find an establishing point in terms of where are they right now at the moment, where would they like to be, and ideally, what are some of the consequences of them not taking an action right now to get to where they need to be. And the framework that I really look at is utilizing expanded questions, which I'm happy to break down to really get an idea in terms of finding their pain. And then once I've found their pain, then we need to establish, okay, cool, let's paint a scenario. If I had to wave a magic wand and this pain was gone, what would you be doing? How much would you be making? How would you be feeling? How would you be able to provide for your family and things like that? Because we're not just running a business for a business. There's something that we're going to be doing, or there's some sort of benefit that we're going to be getting from the outcome of the business doing well. And then ultimately the focus point in order to get them to push and to move forward is what's going to happen if this continues for the next 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. What will happen to the business then? What will happen to you? What will happen to your personal life? What will happen to you emotionally? And it's the consequence-based questions which then pushes them to move forward. And because most of us don't like pain, we then naturally want to find a solution around that. And then eventually they'll come to me and they're like, okay, well, Wandile, what can we do about this? And then that is the cue for me to explain how our services or product can help them. And it's an easy segue for them because now it doesn't seem like I'm pushing them to make a decision, but now in a sense, I'm influencing them to then see themselves that, hey, actually, this could actually help me, provided they're a good fit. And then that's where the sale happens, where it seems like it was their idea to move forward instead of me having to push it on them.
Yeah. And I also reflect back since 2021, we generate quite a huge amount of leads as a business, the agency specifically. But we only sign a very small percentage of it. So I think we're generating about 200 leads a month. And hypothetically, let's say we sign 10 clients a month. That's a very small percentage. That's 5% of all the leads that we generate. Where a lot of people will be like, there's something wrong with your process. You need to be converting more. But again, we probably could be converting more, but is that really what we should be doing? Because we might be selling our services to people who are not an ideal fit for it.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, what I've always wanted to do is I want to make sure that we sell our services to people who is actually going to benefit from it. But again, I don't want to be the person that promises them that it's going to happen because I can't control all the necessary variables. And I think that shift has made a big difference in how people engage with us from a sales perspective. And I feel like there's a level of credibility and trust that comes with this consultative nature of doing a sales conversation, if you will.
100%. That's the core focus of consultative selling, is that you are ultimately fostering a relationship. Because let's be honest, man, we're not stupid. If you're engaging with the salesperson, you already know that their core focus is to get you to buy whatever they're selling. But it's very rare to find someone who could be like, you know what, I see where your pain points lie, but maybe this is not a good fit for you. Or, look, we can help. However, there's no guarantees. Here is the best option, but if you don't have an appetite for risk, then unfortunately, we won't be able to help you. People respect that more because now they know that you're not just trying to fish for a sale, but you genuinely want to help them. And I've noticed, especially when I would do the sales for you, is if I knew that we couldn't help that client, they would appreciate it so much where they would go and tell their buddies who do make a good fit to say, hey, look, you need to actually go chat with this company. And then they would refer business. So for us, it's all about consultative is all about how to really build and foster a relationship with that potential client. Because at the end of the day, they probably know someone who would make a good fit. So do you want to try and make money immediately, or do you want something that's going to last long term where they can refer you business?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are so short-term focused when it comes to the actual sales conversations that they're having. Like everybody is desperate to cover their bills today. And even though V8 was in that position when we started, like we've always taken a long view on things. And that's just building relationships and building trust in the market. And I think in a way, looking back, I think it served us well. And hopefully we can, I believe that that's still our ethos. And I mean, you will probably remember a few clients that slipped through the doors that probably wasn't the best fit at the time and how the team reacted. And we would always go, Wandile, what did we tell this client? Like what promises that we made? And we learned a lot of lessons along the way.
Of course. I think what I've learned is every time I went to traditional, there was a lot of buyer's remorse. But when I went back to consultative, that's when, we really got the good clients. So I suppose it's about finding that balance. And it's not to say that when you're consultative, you're passive. Because within the consultative side, you are still applying a little bit of pressure, provided it's for their better good. Because I've also noticed that with certain prospects, I think for many business owners, it's their subconscious that's typically holding them back from making the ultimate big decisions. And it's just you're there as not only just the consultant that's helping them, but also in a sense a friend who's guiding them making that next step of the journey. And the reason why I also love consultative selling is because in some way, shape or form or another, we do use this framework, especially in relationships, whether it's family, friends. You have a friend that reaches out to you that has a problem, and you expand on that. You're like, hey, what's going on? And they tell you what the problem is, and you expand a little bit further, and they tell you the pain. And at the end of the day, it's not like you're forcing them to take your advice. But if you can tell that hey, look, you actually need to take this advice over here, you push them because you know that it's going to benefit them in the end, whether they take it or not, but you've done your best that you could. And that is the reason why I love consultative selling, is because we naturally are like that. Hence why with traditional, because not many people are confrontational, that's why there's that inclination to not want to pick up a phone and dial people or to reach out to people, because you feel, based from the programming, the media, that, okay, I need to be pushy, when that's not the case. People just want to have a genuine conversation.
There's something called commission breath, and people can smell it. And that's just a thing that I believe, is that the moment you get overly sales-driven, very traditional with how you sell the product or service, people start to pick up in that, and the bullshit meter just goes off. And I always say, I would rather not take your money and you still think that I'm a nice guy. Then this was literally one of the lines I used to use, and I meant it with my whole heart. I used to say, I'd rather not take your money and you still think that I'm a nice guy, as opposed to me taking your money and it doesn't work out and I did something wrong and misaligned expectations, and you tell all your mates that I'm a complete asshole. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather not have your money and still have your respect, if that makes sense. So I think for those watching and listening, do we have any practical tips that we can maybe share, W, that they can make notes of, so they can take this to their next sales call and actually see the impact for themselves? Like, where do we start?
Number one, shut up and listen. We have this tendency, and I understand, we normally like to talk about ourselves and to talk all the time, but this is not about you, this is about the prospect. So when you're listening, you're actively listening by doing the best that you can to really understand where they're coming from. It's the same way when you're engaging with a doctor. The doctor doesn't cut you short to talk about themselves. They're listening to actually see what's wrong with you. So that's the first step. And I see many people just always talk a lot. So I would say they should do 90% of the talking. You should do 10% of the listening. Next thing I would also provide in terms of advice is to start looking at utilizing expanded questions. That really has been a game changer for me in terms of how to get your prospects to open up. And we do it so naturally. You just need to look at it from a perspective of, if this were a buddy of mine, how would I engage with them? And the easiest way, or some questions that you can utilize from an expanded base type of perspective, is when somebody tells you their problem, instead of you just moving to the next thing, you want to expand on that.
Almost like peel the layers of the onion a bit.
Yes. So for example, hey, I'm having an issue generating leads. You're having an issue generating leads? Sometimes you just need to repeat it, but then in a tonality that states that you are trying to understand, what do you mean?
Yeah. Tell me more. Like, what is the biggest problem you're facing?
Yes. And then they'll expand on that. That's the whole purpose of it, right? But even with them expanding it, that's still surface level. We need to break it down. So they'll tell you, let's say, for example, my sales team just isn't generating enough revenue. What do you mean by that? Yeah, well, last month we only did 80K and we typically do about 100K. What have you guys done in the past? So that's the whole purpose of expanded based questions, is really to get them to open up and to really expand. And 9 times what you mentioned is that they will peel back the layers, and then you really get to see what is the heart of the issue. So that is what I would provide in terms of advice from expanded based questions. Once you've really gotten to the pain, then the next thing is we need to establish where would they like to be. So one question I like to ask them is, okay, cool, if I had to wave a magic wand and business was going well, how much would you be making? Where would you live? What car would you drive? Again, this all really just depends on the prospect and the relationship that you have. And they will then speak about that. And the whole purpose around that, from a psychological perspective, is you're getting them to imagine that perfect scenario. They're not there yet, but you're getting them to get to that point where they imagine that perfect scenario. And the fact that they're opening up about that, that is perfect. And I also like to find ways to also include what benefit would they get outside of business, because that's very important. I think many people just always try to focus on the business side of things, but there could be a driving point as to why they want to make that money in the business. So I always like to ask questions in terms of, just as a side note, hey, how's the kids? Sometimes I can tell by their hands that maybe they're married, or I'll find them like, hey, you look like someone who's got a couple of kids. And the reason why I do that is because then I know once they have a family, then I can latch onto that. So when I ask in terms of the goal-based questions, so tell me, like, what would you do for your kids? What would you do for your wife, if business was doing very well? And then they would tell me. And that whole process is really getting them to trust you a bit more, because you're not just going to go to any random person and expand on that.
Yeah, but it also helps you better understand why they're doing this in the first place.
100%.
And I think the why behind it all is so crucial. And on top of that, I think, just out of curiosity, that's something I used to do, but I want to reflect and actually go, is this actually realistic? And then because you've got to go, what is the goal, right? If I can wave a magic wand, what is the goal? The goal is to make $1 million a month in revenue, whatever it may be. Okay, great. How will that change your life, etc. Then the question becomes, when would you ideally want to reach this goal? Like, what is the timeline associated with this? And then it's understanding, is that timeline really realistic, or are we setting ourselves up for failure in this relationship, the two of us?
100%. And that's where the consequence-based questions also come in as well, where it's like, okay, cool. From a realistic standpoint, what I've noticed, and this is just a slight distinction from what I've seen just in terms of engagement with different leads, is the beginners typically have very high, lofty goals, where, for example, they haven't done much in their business yet, but they want to make, let's say, 100 million in like a year. So, of course, then it's very important to really bring them down. It's mainly the seasoned veterans who, because they've experienced so much, they're a bit more realistic. So 9 times out of 10, they are very realistic in that sense. And for me now, with the consequence-based question, now that I understand what the pain point is, I want to press on it. Because if I can press on it now, I know the urge for them to want to make a difference really starts to pop up. So I typically like to ask them, and in the tonality where it's like, they can tell that I'm concerned. And I'll be like, I'm a little concerned here, because what's going to happen if this doesn't change? What's going to happen if you keep making this X amount of revenue for the next 3 months? And I just shut up. And 9 times out of 10, they will tell me I might need to close down the business, or we're going to have to make some changes. And then normally what I do after that is I tell them, okay, so what should we do about this then? 9 times out of 10, they're like, well, what can you offer me? And then that's when I provide the service. So consequence-based questions, and there's many ways you can spin off that, but it's really more from the perspective of the pain that they've given you. How can you press on that? And ask them specifically, what will happen if this doesn't change, hypothetically speaking? And 9 times out of 10, if anyone says that they will be in trouble, then that's when you can come in and bring your services.
Yeah.
Now you have the option, or the opportunity for you to then speak about how your services will help drive that pain away from them to the goal that they need.
Yeah, I think that works for a lot of companies, but I think even us at V8, like we're taking the foot off of the pain. If you think about it, almost in some sense, you want to, like in some cases, you want to maybe reinforce it. In some cases, you might want to lighten up, because it can come back to bite you in the butt as well. You don't want to manipulate someone into making a decision that's not best for them. And I think this is where a lot of people can maybe watch and misinterpret what you're saying. It's like, you're not saying, listen, double down on the pain so you can get the deal. What you're trying to say is double down on the pain so they can get to the awakening moment that they have to make a change in their own business.
If they make a good fit.
Exactly.
I need to stress that.
But also, if it's not us, it has to be someone else.
True.
So if you're not going to go with us or the solution that we offer, you have to figure out something, because it's a dire situation. You know 100%. What I'm saying? So it's almost getting them to the epiphany moment, that awakening moment of, I have to do something, or I want to test something else, or I'm ready to take the next step. And that's hopefully what it would look like. And hopefully there's a good probability that our offer is a good fit for you. And I think that's where a lot of people most likely can get a bit manipulative. They can start to force their solution into the puzzle. Like, when the puzzle, if your solution was the missing puzzle piece, they kind of start to snip the edges of the puzzle piece to try and squeeze it into that last piece. It's not the right piece, but they're trying to force it to fit. And I think that's where you have to go, that solution has to just naturally fit in there. And you need almost like a level of sincerity, but also just authenticity and honesty to tell someone when they're not a fit.
That is true. I think with all the frameworks that I've mentioned, you could be really dangerous with it, because at the end of the day, you can either push them to their greatest good or something that could be toxic. In the medical industry, they call it malpractice, right? So it's like a doctor. A doctor can tell whether they can help you or not. And depending on what he prescribes to you, that can either kill you or make you or heal you. And it's what you were saying, that, hey, if I'm a doctor and I can tell that this is out of my level of skill set or my reach, then that's when they refer you to a specialist. And it's just echoing on what you were saying.
It's funny enough, my wife is a surgeon, as you know, and so often she would tell people to not do surgery, because rather try and naturally heal the problem, because that's just more beneficial. And there are so many surgeons that are telling her, what the hell are you doing? You're leaving money on the table. And she's like, bro, this is someone's life. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is a situation where this person doesn't need surgery. Like, I don't need the money. I don't want the money that bad. I'm not going to manipulate someone into having surgery. Just because they're sitting in my rooms and they've got pain doesn't mean I have to cut. And it's almost the same with selling your services, is that you have to diagnose the problem. You have to then have empathy and sympathy and really try and guide them to a solution, whether that is you or a second referral or a second opinion or whatever it may be. And I think that's when a lot of people get manipulative, because they look at the short-term money and they go, we can cover our bills with this. We can make some good profit with this. I can take my family on holiday with this, whatever it is. And I think I wish more people would just take a very honest approach. And funny enough, you will actually start to grow faster when you do think that way.
True.
So there's so many people that come to her now that just trust her advice. You know what I'm saying? Because she's the doctor that gives the most honest advice. So second opinions are coming to her. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So people are going, I got this advice from this doctor and he wants to cut. I want a second opinion and I thought of you. Or you worked on my mom's hip, for example, and I've heard good things about you. I've heard you're always honest and you did a really good surgery for my mom. Here's my child, the doctor said that he, injured his knee. He needs a knee scope, whatever, I don't know. And she's like, I just want to get a second opinion. I'm butchering this story. This is not a real story. This is just an example. But the point is, like, so many cases it's happened where people go, I just want a second opinion. And they come to you because they trust you. And I think, and that's what most businesses need to aim for, is be the company people trust, not the company that's just known for taking people's money. It's like, even if you can't help them, at least they still trust you. You know what I'm saying?
That's so true.
Amazing. Any final thoughts?
Sales is fun, guys. It's really fun. I also used to be someone that would be like, oh, well, I'm not a salesperson, until I realized that no, it's because I was traditionally using the traditional sales method. But once I discovered consultative selling, it changed everything for me. And to be honest, we're all selling in some way, shape, or form. We just need to use the right framework at the end of the day, which will help us get our way, if you get what I mean. But yeah, that's what I would say to most people. And guys, just listen. You'd be so surprised in terms of how many people open up and tell you more than what they expected, because you just listened and you showed that you cared.
Love it, yeah. Just be real, be authentic, be you. I think the bottom line from my point of view is go deep in terms of the questions that you ask, and really do it with empathy. People are not going to tell if you're not interested, but I'm just naturally interested in people's problems. Like, it's all perspectives, really, at the end of the day. So I'm interested in those perspectives, and maybe that's naturally why I was good at generating sales for the agency in the beginning when we needed it. But the thing is, with this power comes responsibility.
Great responsibility.
and you have to do right by people, because if you don't, it's just going to come back and bite you in the ass. And that's just how it is. So we're playing the long game, and just focus on building trust. And if you can help them, great. If you can't, tell them honestly. I think that's just our philosophy. Works for us, and I believe it will work for you too. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, my brother.
Likewise, brother.
Always great to have you. Much love to you guys. I hope there was value in this video, in this episode. If there was, drop a comment, let us know. All the best and have a wonderful rest of your day. Cheers.